welcome back to Tea Time with T and S. In today's chapter 11, Birthing, I brought Sophie Gallegos. Hi, Sophie.
Hey, girl.
Welcome to the tea. So let's do a cheers. Oopsie. Cheers. Yum. So on today's chapter, I brought Sophie on board to talk about her experience. She's had 2 babies now. And yeah, I kind of want her to kind of go through her experience with her children. She's had both C-sections. And yeah, so if you want to go ahead and get started, Sophie.
Sure. So Tiara met me before I had babies. So she's seen me like full circle with mom life and 19-year-old getting hired at Disney. So she's been here for the long haul. So with birthing, I think, majority of people have this idea of what it's going to be like and what they expect. And everyone has like, oh, my birth is going to go like this, like that, the other. Until you're having a kid. And for me, I think what I would like to get across to viewers, just to be a little bit more educated, is C-sections. They suck, and unfortunately, I've had to have 2. I do think my first one could have been avoided. Just a little bit of backstory was I was in a long-term relationship. I was engaged. Basically planned to have a baby, and all in that year, a month before I found out I was pregnant, my grandmother had passed away. So not only was I dealing with major loss, I had just moved back home from being in the Bay Area for years. I came home to my grandmother who was very sick, my mother who was very sick, and then major death, and death comes in 3s. So it was my grandfather on my stepdad's side, my grandmother a week later, and then my great uncle a week after that. So it was a tremendous loss. I know everyone says fuck 2020, but 2017 had me, and it was a lot. Like, I look back, I'm like, wow, I really went through that shit. So a month after my grandmother passed, I found out I was expecting. This time I was in a long-term relationship, but it was also long distance. So I wanted to stay positive because there were already cracks in the relationship, but I didn't think a kid was gonna change anything. I just thought like maybe it would help, and you can't put pressure like that on a baby, but that's another story. Anyways,
but I feel like so many women do that, and I think that's what's so great with you sharing your story with us today, is that there is so many women who feel this is going to save my relationship, this is going to save what we're broken, but if we have this kid together, everything's it's going to mend, right? A lot of women think, there might be men too, don't get me wrong, like there might be men who think the same way, but a lot of women are like, this is going to fix the problem. And that's what I love that you're going to share with us, that it's not necessarily the case.
No, and I thank God for my mom and my grandfather who passed away before I even was born, who gave my mom this advice and told me, a man will not stay with you because you have children. A man will stay with you because he loves you. If he doesn't love you, that's it. And I thank God I had that ingrained in me very young, because I became a single mom after I had my son a week after he was born by choice. And it was hard, but things weren't going the way I thought they were gonna go, especially having a very traumatic birth. So my son was a week old. I was basically like, you can leave, and I've never seen someone book the next flight. I did that in a way to kind of shake things up, because I didn't want to be a single mom. I was like, well, let me try this, because saying that I need you here isn't helping. So saying I don't need you didn't help either. So before I knew it, I was on my own. And let me just backtrack and get to what we're talking about, is having the birth. So my pregnancy was pretty uneventful, but because I had so much stress on me already, like just moving back, trying to acclimate back to like living with my family, my mom being sick, my grandmother passing away, I was already not overweight, but I wasn't comfortable with my weight. When I conceived my son, my first, I was my heaviest that I've ever been. And with that, I had already had like weird cravings before I got pregnant. Like I'd be like, I just want sugar. I just want sugar nonstop. So I know I was already like pre-diabetic before the fact. So of course you do your glucose test, and I had gestational diabetes. So I was going through that. You know, I didn't get like weird cravings. Like smells didn't freak me out. If anything, like things just smelled better. Like Taco Bell, I was like, oh my god, it's a cheesy gordita crunch. But I did get nosebleeds. Like I usually get nosebleeds, but like I got like more, and that's normal for some women. But other than that, that's it. Oh, you know what? I did get like weird skin tags. Like I got like some skin. And it was weird. They like melted back into me, like became freckles. They did. They're just like part of me now. I swear. It's so weird as shit, right? It's gross. But they're part. My little skin tags are me now. They're my freckas, like my baby would say. Anyways. Yeah, that's really it. Some weird ass skin tags, gestational diabetes, bloody noses, but that's it. In the beginning of my pregnancy though, because I didn't know all these feelings in my body, the doctors actually thought I had an ectopic twin. So because I was getting like weird pain.
Wait, what's that?
Like where I could have like conceived twins, but one of them got stuck in the tubes.
Oh.
So I had like weird sharp pains, and I was like, no, I'm having it pretty consistent. It was like 2 months, 3 months into my pregnancy, and I had to do a couple ultrasounds and like
to make sure,
rule out the fact like there wasn't a twin in there that was gonna burst open. Yeah, you know, fun stuff. Yeah. All the things they teach you in school.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you tell them all babies. So pretty uneventful. At this time, you know, preparing for birth, I think I just thought like, you know, you go into labor, you push out a baby. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't have any health issues. Like it's just you're made to have babies, so that's what you do. So that's not happen. My son's father from my previous relationship like came and maybe I don't know, at most 5 days before I was supposed to have a baby, but did the last doctor's appointment at 40 weeks. Did a measurement. No signs of labor, wasn't dilated. Cervix checks for me, absolutely painful, not fun. By the way, you can deny all of them. You don't have to get cervix checks. Oh. Yeah, they don't tell you that. The more interruption you get on your cervix, the more you're at like high risk for infection. They don't tell you that. Learn from me. So the next day after my 40-week appointment, they took me to do an NST, non-stress test. So monitoring the baby, making sure he's fine. What they found out was that my fluids were really low, like surrounding the baby, so that wasn't good for him, and his heart rate kept dropping. So he'd recover, but like there was just too many dips. What turned into be like, what was supposed to be like a 20-minute appointment turned out to be like over an hour. And then they come in and they say, okay, bad news is your doctor's out of town. I was like, I saw this motherfucker yesterday. What are you talking about? He's on vacation? Okay.
I'll have a martini for me.
Yeah, and they're like, good news is you're going to have a baby today. And I was like, that's like, when it hit me, I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm just going to like go home. And they're like, no, you need to go across the street and like check in the hospital. I like lost it. I was so scared. And that's, I think that's like the last bit of affection I got from my son's dad, where it was like, you're gonna be okay, it's okay, like we're gonna have a baby. And I was like, okay, and then that was it. Never happened again. I never got a hug or anything. So they just sent me to get induced. And induction is good if there's some signs of labor or if your body's ready. And especially for your first baby, it's not uncommon to go to 42 weeks. But they see 40 weeks, they see my waters are low. There's things that I could have done. They could have told me to like go home, or they could have continued to monitor me and like help me get like jumpstart labor naturally. But that didn't happen. So get to the hospital, and I knew to avoid Pitocin. That's the only thing I knew to avoid was Pitocin. And Pitocin helps your body with contractions. It gives your body contractions. So they were like, okay, we're just gonna start you on Pitocin. I was like, I have no signs of labor. I'm not dilated. You gotta give me something else. So it was either Cervidil or something similar. I cannot remember the name, but they put this like flat shaped tampon with a string behind my cervix. So this is supposed to help ripen your cervix. And they put that in at like 9 o'clock at night. And by 3 in the morning, I thought I pissed myself. but my water's broke. So I'm thinking, great, like this is working, like maybe we can start Pitocin. They checked me and I think I was still like maybe at a 1, or like they were like half centimeter. I was like, it was a long way to get to 10. So I was just like, okay, this is just it. Mind you, because my water was broken and I didn't think to like, hey, can you give me some mesh undies and like a pad so I'm not like leaking everywhere to like get up in labor? I didn't. I just thought it was like, okay, stay in the bed. Worst thing you can do. You need to move to get that baby out. So I was just stuck there. They're like, do you want to bounce on the ball? I'm like, no.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes, you don't do that. Like birthing sitting down like in a bed is like the worst position. Basically how you made that baby is how you should get it out. No, I'm just kidding.
Let me take notes real quick.
But don't worry, I can't get the baby out to save my life. So here we go. So yeah, I'm like, you should bounce on a ball, like you should like sway with your partner, your loving partner. They should have your arms around you, but that doesn't happen. You should just be constantly moving, and I didn't. Once they put me in that bed, I stayed there. I did not move. So they had me on Pitocin, contractions start coming. It sucks. And you know, they started it, I want to say they started it low and slow. That's what I requested, but it just got worse and worse and worse and stronger with basically no changes to my cervix. So at this point, I got checked in on a Thursday evening. It is Friday night. Nothing's happening. I finally give into an epidural because in my mind I was like, I'm gonna have a natural birth, but that didn't happen. So I finally gave into epidural, and I was like, oh, when you do the cervix checks, now I can't feel them because I'm numb. I was like, I should have got this a long time ago, but at the same time, an epidural can like stall your birth. So, you know, just taking notes for the next time. And then my mom was coming in and seeing me, and by this point, I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten since they checked me in. It's late Friday night, got checked in the evening before. I'm shaking, and it's common to happen with the epidural, but I was like so high on anxiety. Like I was like, I couldn't talk anymore. And then I started to swell so much. I was like trying to talk, and I'm like, what is blocking my view? Girls, my cheeks. My cheeks were so big, like it was blocked. Like I could see them in my vision, and I just kept getting bigger and bigger. And mind you, because I had gestational diabetes, it was much easier for me to gain weight, and I ate all the things. I ate, you know, eat for 2, don't do that, and I ate for like 8. It was really bad. By the time I got into the hospital to give birth, I was close to 200. So I know by the time I got out, I was clearly over it. So my mom saw all the things, and with me, my mom had a very traumatic birth too. So she kind of stepped out, talked to the nurse, and she's like, hey, she's chattering, she's not making any progress. I know her water's been broken for probably 24 hours already. Like, I think you should do a C-section. She's like, I had the same birth with her, and she's like, I don't want her to get sick. So the nurse was like, well, thank you for that information, you know. And then the doctor came in very nonchalant. He was like, okay, it's time for a C-section, you know, you're at risk for infection. At this point, I was really sad, but I was ready to meet my baby. And I was like, okay, I was still nervous. I remember them wheeling me into the operating room, and they had told my son's dad, you know, we're going to change here so you can be brought in. And then things happened really quick. I remember shivering on the table because you're uncovered from the waist down, and there's a bunch of people in the room. It's not very fun. I remember them strapping my arms down. And then I remember them doing something on my stomach, and I told them, I was like, what are you doing? They're like, you can feel that? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's like, why are you poking me? They're like, you can feel that. And they're like, give her more of her epidural. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And they wait just a few more minutes, and I'm like, no, what is that? They're like, can you feel it? And I'm like, yes. They're like, this is the poke test, you can feel it. Sorry, it's an emergency now. And they just put a gas mask on me. So I was put under, which happens sometimes, like it's not a big deal, but at that time, for me, it correlated because almost 9 months to the day that my grandma passed, I was having the baby. So in my mind, I just kept thinking, please God, let me wake up. Yeah. Please let me wake up. Like, I remember, I was so scared. I remember they put the gas mask on me, and I'm humming, because I'm like, if I'm humming, they know I'm awake and I can feel this. Yeah. So I'm literally, and it sounds funny, but at the same time, like, I thought I was gonna die. Yeah. And while I'm put under, God, my mom had the same experience. Her dad died the year that I was, basically 9 months later, I was born.
Gosh,
so like the same thing's happening with me, like 9 months later after my grandma, like a baby's born. And I remember when I was under, I woke up in the scene of a picture that I have of my grandma that I actually recreated when she was pregnant. And I woke up with her and I was so calm, and it was black and white, and there's just like white bed sheets that were hanging on a clothesline, and that was my grandma's thing. And that's the picture that I wake up in, is the one I created with her. And she just looks at me like, she doesn't say anything, but I just know like I'm okay.
Oh my God.
And I remember waking up from it.
Oh, you just give me chills.
It sucked.
Oh.
It's not fun, but that's like my birth story. And I remember waking up from it and thinking, I thought I was in a car accident. All my memory of like being pregnant, because the first thing a nurse said to me was like, hey, don't worry, we were able to stop the bleeding. And then they're like pushing down on my stomach, making sure, you know, just the normal protocol after you have a baby. And I'm like, oh my God, who was in the car with me? I hope no one else is hurt. And then my son's dad texted me, he's like, hey, he's here. And my baby kind of whimpers, and I'm like, oh, I had a baby.
Oh my God.
It was like so surreal, and I'm trying to make sense of it, and I'm so drugged. Like, he's bringing him to me, and I'm like, I can't see him. What does he look like? Is he okay? And I'm trying to like tell him like, hey, I was with my grandma, and I start to cry. I was like, I was with her, like we were folding clothes. Like it was so weird. And I think, you know, he's in shock too. Like I can't, you know, feel sad that he didn't get what I was talking about, but I was just like trying to connect and be like, you know, I guess it was really important to me. It just wasn't important to him. We just had a baby, and he had been with him by himself for I don't know how long. I remember I was going in for surgery around 1, and I remember waking up close to 3. So I don't know how long my baby was out without me before I got to be with him. And it was like fast. As soon as I, you know, woke up, they're like, okay. They like ripped down my gown. They're like, it's time to breastfeed him. And I'm like, oh, okay. They're like, do you have milk? I'm like, I don't know. They squeeze my nipple, milk shoots out. I'm like, sorry, milk shoots out, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, she's got flat nipples. And they like throw like a plastic like nipple shield at me, and I'm like, okay, like,
and all the stuff that you have no idea about, you were not educated on how many
No.
books you read, no matter what, you couldn't have prepared for this.
It's like on the job training. You don't know what you're doing until you're like, you know, the boss goes like, you're not supposed to do this, but this is what I do. Like that's how I learned. So it was like really, it was a lot for me. So
But OJT,
yeah, guys, don't take my advice. Just learn from it, okay? So that was a lot, and healing from a C-section, breaking up from my fiance at the time, being a single mom, learning how to breastfeed, all in 1 week. And you know, when I had done the breakup, maybe 2 days later, I got severely engorged. I didn't know you could say, hey, this medication doesn't work for me. I was on Percocet and ibuprofen around the clock. So I would be trying to doze off and take a nap, and I'd wake up with like a sound, and it would like be like I was falling out of bed. It was nonstop, and I was on Percocet probably 3 or 4 weeks, and I knew, I was like, I better wean myself off of this, or it's gonna be a problem. And then I was okay, like ibuprofen was okay, and then before it was like nothing. But with the Percocet, I didn't feel the pain in my breasts. I had no idea I was engorged. I thought being as solid as a rock was a good thing.
Yeah.
No, girl. Those things were radiating heat. For 2 days, I thought, I'm like, well, it is what it is. Like, they're just hard. They'll get soft again someday. And my aunt was the only one who was ever breastfed. So it was my uncle's wife. And she was like, honey, this is bad. And I was like, what is it? So that night, from her coming just for a couple of hours, my family was over. We were, you know, they were seeing the baby, helping me. And I got up from the recliner. I had to go to the bathroom. And I kind of felt hot. Meanwhile, my baby was born December 23rd. It's cold. I got up, and from the back of my neck to the back of my ankle, dripping. So I was completely drenched and realized I was engorged and could have slightly been prevented, but I was a new single mom, and I was scared that if I wasn't able to care for my baby, that something would have happened. And I just grin and bear it and did what I could at home and tried to avoid seeing a doctor and all that. I know it sounds crazy, but that, in my mind at the time, that's just what seemed like the best thing to do. So a lot looking back, I was so uneducated about birthing and knowing what to do, and recovery for me was really hard. I hated it. It took months, even weeks, for me to be able to like sit up straight. The pain, I know some women can have a C-section and they can zip up their jeans. I don't have that, even though like I am a smaller frame and considered, I guess, a lighter weight. I don't have that luxury. I am very swollen for months until I can start to lose weight. For example, I just had this little bub 4 months ago, and I feel like my swelling just went down. And now I can concentrate on like weight loss where I'm comfortable. So it was hard to be in a new body and healing and taking care of another human being and trying to remember to take care of myself as well. So jump forward to now, planning for him, new relationship, feeling much different. I know, but you're good. And going about the thing of birth, I knew I had to educate myself more. And at first I just thought, I was like, well, it's going to be a planned C-section. It's going to be like much easier. Until I realized it's now an old saying where once a C-section, always a C-section. That's not true. If you're not high risk, you can do a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. And I think so many women need to find out about that, because for me, I feel like my birth, I was asleep. I didn't see my baby being born. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't hear him cry. I wanted to be the first person to hold my baby. So I felt like I really wanted to experience that. So I did all the things this round. I really educated myself. I listened to podcasts, birthing podcasts. I read raspberry leaf tea. I ate dates. I got chiropractic care. I got acupuncture. I switched my provider because I didn't feel like my provider was supportive enough 30 weeks into my pregnancy. And just really went on long walks, did everything you're supposed to, and it worked. I went into labor on my own. So I used to think people were crazy for like, oh, I'm gonna buy a home and like have a baby and like all at once. And I was like, that's stupid. Meanwhile, we get the keys to our new house on a Friday. The next morning I go into labor with him. So I was like, oh, well, here we go. Here's the dummy. And it was so different. I didn't believe, I was probably in labor for like 2 days because it just felt like low period cramps. And I was like, oh, well, it's not my period, but like I feel like that same pain. Figure out I'm in labor. So it was early Saturday morning hours, like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm just tossing and turning. I can't fall asleep. And then I felt like a lot of pressure like on like my stomach area. And I was like, well, maybe if I go pee, like that'll kind of relieve some pressure. I stand up and I feel a gush and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? It was my bloody show. So it's like kind of like a mucus plug it was blood and like mucus, but that's kind of like the start of labor, like one of the signs. And I thought Pitocin was the only thing that gave you like kick-ass contractions, but I found out that on your own, your body can have really painful contractions. And I thought it was going to be like slow start and before I like had to go to the hospital, but I was just so excited and so relieved that I went to labor myself that I only waited 2 hours at home before I finally went to the hospital. And mind you, I also hired a doula, but because of COVID, my doula wasn't allowed in. So even though I had her support and I could have had done more and had her come to my house and help me labor at home, I totally jumped the gun and just went to the hospital too soon. I get there, my midwife, was like, oh, you need the epidural because you're in so much pain. And I tried to stand up for myself, and that was still hard, even knowing the things to do, because less interventions is going to give you a more successful outcome. So I tried to say no, but I feel like I wasn't, stern enough. I ended up getting an epidural right when I got there. I labored some more, things were going good, and then we noticed this little guy's heart wasn't recovering as well, like it was decels. And basically it went for another cervix check, pulled the towel out, I was between my legs and it was full of meconium. So that's, you know, baby pooped in the tummy, and that's kind of like, okay, I was like, it's fine, let's just call it. So we went for another C-section, and this time I thought it was gonna be different. I thought I was gonna have less anxiety, not worried about it. And I mentioned to the anesthesiologist, like, hey, last time I could feel everything, so I had to be put under. And she's like, no, I did my job. And I was like, okay, well, can you just do the, like, I know all the language already. Like, can you just do the poke test? Like, I need to know if I need to be put under or not. I'm like, just have it ready. And she's kind of like, does it alcohol? So I was like, no, that's like a wet cloth. I can feel that. And she's like, well, I guess you do need to be put under. I was like, yeah, I knew it. So at least this time I wasn't crying and like humming. I was just like, okay, just take your deep breaths and just go for it. And that part was easier, but waking up was worse because I woke up screaming, my incision, like it's burning. And I just remember being in so much pain. And then getting to like the recovery, and my fiance hands him to me, and I just know immediately I put him to my breast. Like, that was natural for me now. That was easier. But then the other thing was, I was like, my incision is burning. I'm being very vocal about that. But the other thing was, I was like, my butt hurts. My butt hurts so bad. And I was like, do I say something? Like, did someone mess with me in surgery? Like, and then finally, like the second day in recovery, I tell my nurse, I was like, every move I make, I go to cough, I go to like reach for my drink, and it hurts. I'm in pain. I don't know what to do. Like, can you flip me over? And she's like, okay. And she really can't say it. She's like, nothing's there. I'm like, but it hurts. Is there anything you can tell me? And she's like, well, most likely in surgery, you were bleeding out, and they just had to get, you know, medication to stop that in you as fast as they could. And I was like, so that's what they did? And she's like, most likely. So I knew to ask for like witch hazel to like kind of dull the pain, and thank God that started to work. And then I was...
That's scary though too, like when you're in surgery, no matter what surgery, obviously, it doesn't matter what, but you don't know what they're doing.
I have no idea.
You have no idea. I mean, all you know is how you feel when you come out of it. Yeah. And I mean, how scary for you to think like, oh crap, did I just get raped?
That's what I thought. You know? I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, they all had to turn with me.
Yeah, you know, like
it's horrible.
That's scary.
Yeah, it sucked. So, found out that's basically what it was. She went over like my surgical notes, not with me, but she reviewed them herself. And then I'm getting ready to go because I want to get back to my toddler. Oh my God, it was horrible being away from my first. I was just like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I wanted to get out. Then that night I feel a fever coming on. I'm like, I know I have a fever. I asked them to check me. They ran a bunch of tests. Turns out I lost a lot of blood. So I had to, at first they said it was a 2-unit blood transfusion, but it turned into 3. So I had to wait until my fever was gone for 24 hours, and I had to wait to get all the blood successfully back in my body. So that was just something I didn't expect. And I probably needed the first time because I was so weak for so long after my first C-section. It was a very long recovery, the first round. This round, it's still hard, but I was amazed of how much I could do after just, you know, a couple weeks. I mean, I didn't want to rush, but 2 weeks after I had him, we had to move into the new house. My fiance was like, we'll stay here as long as you need to, like, it's not a problem. But I was like, no, we need to get into our new house because then I'll never move. So
are you talking to?
Yeah.
We didn't even introduce you.
This is Benny, by the way.
I need to get a bee.
Yeah.
Cute.
So, luckily I healed faster than I did the first round, but it's still hard no matter what. And what I feel, and I know I shouldn't, but I think some women get negative comments to them that if you have a C-section, it's not like a real birth. But it doesn't matter because it's not like we didn't go through the same thing. And sometimes I'm still very hard on myself. I feel like my body failed me and I didn't have the birth that I wanted and that I still want. It sounds crazy, but I wish so badly that I could push a baby out and hold my baby and be in that moment, but I don't have that. I'm really high on drugs. My baby's handed to me. I have a hard time holding them, and that's how I'm introduced to my babies. And it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, I just wish I could have a different experience. If I could go back to my first, there's so many things I would have done differently. I think if it were me wanting to give someone advice, if you don't feel comfortable in your relationship, do it on your own. Get that baby out of you and get all those negative distractions away. Because this round, I couldn't believe how different things were, how good I felt, and I was surrounded by love and support throughout all of my crazy wishes and desires, and anything I wanted, it was a given. I didn't have to like beg or like pull out a Venn diagram of why this is better and why this isn't, and put it on a slideshow to see like why my thoughts and opinions mattered of what I needed for my body. So if I could go back, I would have done things a lot differently. And I hope that if you have to have a C-section, you educate yourself and you become prepared, but also know that if you have one C-section, you don't have to keep having them. If you are not high risk, it's very possible just to have a natural birth after the fact. I don't know if I'll do that. A lot of women are able to have a vaginal birth after 2 C-sections. I'm trying to do evidence-based and find out if it's right for me, but I also don't want to be foolish and just be like, yeah, I can do it, and not worry about what could happen. But a lot of times, you're told you could have a uterine rupture if you try to have a vaginal birth, but no one goes into the details of the risks of repeat C-sections. And there's a lot more risk for repeat C-sections than there are of trying to have a natural birth. So I don't know, that's kind of in a nutshell how I've had my babies and what I could share.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for this. I know I learned a lot, which I'm sure a lot of you too. I don't know if any of you are planning to conceive or hoping to conceive or have gone through this. Maybe you have a different story. Maybe you have a different experience than Sophie had. Obviously, I've already shared with all of you that unfortunately my husband and I were told we weren't able to have kids, and now we're kind of like past that. But at the end of the day, she's blessed with 2 babies. She has Jojo and cute, adorable Benny here, who wanted to make his little surprise visit in this video. But yeah, cutie. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can shoot them my way. I can direct them to Sophie. If you guys have any questions about anything that she talked about today. But I do want to say thank you again. Is there anything else you would like to say to my viewers?
Just thanks for watching. I know it was kind of a long one, but I hope you learn from my mistakes and you can have a better outcome for your birth.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching Tea Time with T and S. Her mug is somewhere else.
Sorry, that was funny.
Chapter 11, called Birthing. Bye.